But we should be live. So I just gotta check real quick. Okay, yeah, we're live. Okay, we're good. All right, we're just gonna go ahead and get started because I know you are working on two different projects. You have some writing commitments. You dropped is this your first official book, Such a Fun Age?
It's the first book I've published. The first book I've written, no. There were many trash ones like before, but this is the first published.
Don't talk bad about it. We always talk positively about ourselves, but you dropped Such a Fun Age and it has blown up. It is all over the radar. We've heard you already have, is it a movie deal, an option deal? What are like the Hollywood terms for?
I am learning the Hollywood terms as I go, and I know it's a film option with Lena Waithe's Hillman Grad, as well as another production company called Sight Unseen, and it'll be their first joint venture together. And I'm so excited to see what that can look like. Of course, production is shut down right now, and so I'm just keeping my fingers crossed. It's going to be great. I think it's going to be amazing.
That's so dope. So this is for everyone that's joining. We have Kiley Reid, who is the author of Such a Fun Age. It was our July. I'm trying to get my mom straight because it feels like, we're just living in slow motion. Like, who knows when time is going. Let me pull up the comments here so I can see them as they come in. And we have people here. It's some folks' first live chat. We have so much conversation happening in the book club around Such a Fun Age. I'm really glad we read it. I'm going to actually ask my first question, which is, where did you find Nicole Lewis? Because she read that book on Audible.
Didn't she kill it? Okay, so it's so funny. I feel like every author is like, oh, I could do my Audible, and then you hear actual like actors do it, and you're like, oh, I could never touch that. Like, that's amazing. And so they sent me 3 people doing recordings. At the second I heard Nicole, I was like, that's the one. She just brings so much to every single character. And from the very beginning, the biggest note was, just give these characters wins and good qualities and bad qualities, and kind of don't tell the reader like what to think, but also make it fun and soapy and make them want to keep listening to it. She really killed it.
Yeah, I totally forgot to cue it. We usually have questions pop up across the screen, but I'll have to do that in the post because I totally forgot. This has been a whirlwind of a day. But to get into the first question that we pulled in from our audience, what personal experiences did you pull from to write this book?
Yeah, so I was a nanny for 6 years in Manhattan. But I mean, from knowing me for about 5 minutes, you'll know I am not Amira. We're very different, but I definitely know what it's like to work in somebody else's house. I know what it's like to not have health insurance and be constantly freaking out about that, and to just be broken away that it like runs every way that like you think and operate. And so I wanted to implement like what that feels like to have, your employer kind of like wanting to impress you a little bit. I had a lot of jobs and a lot of service jobs. I had a lot of, people around me wanting to build me up and kind of fix me. And I was like, I'm chill. I'm good being right here. And I thought that was a really interesting dynamic. So I thought it would be fascinating to have someone in those positions who didn't know what they wanted to do. I always knew I wanted to write, so that was my thing. But I was like, what happens when someone is really chill, having their passions be outside of their job? And so ensure Amira. Yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into the second question, which was, what was your inspiration behind Amira, and particularly the friendship dynamics?
Yeah, I mean, I can say that, so much of writing is getting rejections, and having really good girlfriends during those rejections. Like, I know how much I benefit from good girlfriends. I have a group text just like Amira and Alex do. And, the first time I applied to grad school, I didn't get in anywhere. And this was after one of my girlfriends wrote me a recommendation letter. One of them helped me study for the GRE. And then one of them wrote up my resume. And they were just so there for me, like, even when I didn't get in. And so I wanted to give Amira the same kind of really loyal friendships, but also very, very real, and like girls who give terrible advice sometimes. And so I wanted them to have all of those qualities and also just be really fun.
I mean, everyone was like, we all need a Zara in our life. Whoever inspired Zara, I'm sure is an amazing person, because we all collectively walked away like, yes, where are our Zaras at? That is a good, down good friend.
It's hard to have a friend who's a great friend, but also keeps you accountable. And I think that Zara knows how to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the most fascinating characters in the book was a secondary character, Tamra. And we would love to know, what exactly did you want to convey with the development of Tamra's character?
That's a great question. So in this novel, I was really interested in using stereotypes and twisting them a little bit. I'm sure you can see that each friend group has a friend that mirrors each other. There's like the momish friend, there's the tell it like it is friend, and then I really wanted to dive into the tropes and stereotype of the sassy Black friend and the magical Negro and how that appears in literature. And so with Tamra, I was really excited to show this neoliberal Black woman who thinks she knows what's best for everyone and how much she builds up Alex and makes her make the decisions that she does. I personally, I love awkward moments and I love cringing. And I think that some of the cringiest moments are when elite Black people try and be really down. I think it's hilarious. There's a lot going on in there. And so I was really excited to show Tamra trying to code switch and be cool with Amira and also really judging a lot of her choices. I think that something that happens in the Black community is people say, oh, you not wanting enough, you not wanting to be a girl boss, like you're not just holding yourself back and us back too. And I think that's really hard. And so I wanted to show how Tamra she's condescending, she's really powerful, and she's really polished, and she was a fun character to write for sure.
I think it definitely read that she was trying to be the magical Negro, because that was my comment. Like, what in the magical Negro is happening at this Thanksgiving dinner? Like, none of us ever thought we would cringe at a Black woman reaching for another Black woman's hair. But like the way you wrote that was just so like, oh my God, girl. Like
I don't know you. Just be regular right now. Yeah, for sure.
Why did you decide to reveal, and I listen to the audiobook and I still say Alec and it's Alex.
Whatever you can call her Alex. We know who she is. So
yeah. Okay. Why did you decide to reveal that she lied about Kelly and the letters? How does that impact the reader's perception of Kelly?
So I'll do the first. That's a great question. I'll do the first one first. I have a lot of family members who something will happen to them and then they'll tell a story and they'll get a little reaction. So they tell it a little bit bigger and then they tell it a little bit bigger. And soon it's like this event that never even happened. And I think that the way that memory works, I think people often remember something the way that they want to. And suddenly it really becomes real to them. And so I wanted to play with how memory actually works in real life and how it can be serving to a narrative. And I did a reading in LA and this Black woman came up to me and she was like, hey, this line, I want to share it with you, represents like white supremacy to me. And that's creating your own narrative. And I think that people can create their own narrative and say, I was trying to help, I was trying to do this, and this was all for the benefit of someone else, but it's impact versus intent. And so I wanted to show how that works for Alex. And then how that affects Kelly, I think that they both have some intentions that go awry a little bit. I personally think that, Alex and Kelly both really do love Amira, and that can exist with their preconceived notions. And I almost think it's scarier that you can really love somebody, but also be using them for self-satisfying reasons as well. So that's what I was trying to do there.
What was your thinking behind not having Amira directly confront Alex about leaking the video? And what was the inspiration for this story?
Yeah, so at the end, there's so many things that go into it. I was really inspired by the fact that, Amira's super smart and savvy. She's not the best communicator, though. And so I think it's hilarious, and I understand when people are just like, I wanted her to say this, and I wanted her to do this. Amira's not that person in the moment. And honestly, I'm not either. Like, if I have a confrontation with someone, like, I'll walk away, and I'll take a shower, and I'm like, oh, I should have said this, and I should have done this. And I wanted to give the truth of that moment for her, and for her to pick one thing that she leaves Alex with, and that was Briar. She was like, let me just get this thought out, and that's all I can do in this moment. So I wanted her to just pick one thing and have that be realistic. And I can't remember the second question. Yeah.
What was the inspiration for the story? But I think you kind of covered that, and that you wanted her to, she's savvy, but she's not a good communicator.
Yeah. This story, it's so funny, especially with everything that's happening. I hope that what people take from it is this is not me saying, hey, this is what Black people like and want. I was telling a story about one Black woman and what she was like. I think everyone's experience with whether they would report the video or tell Alex off, that is an individual thing. This was just, let's follow this one Black woman and see where she goes.
I appreciated that she had a very authentic reaction to me, because I do think you think about all the stress that comes with, I think we live in this age where like, oh, everyone wants to be famous and everyone wants to, become like scam their way into wealth essentially. And there's a lot of like having that sort of visibility on you. There's a lot of stress that comes with that, particularly as a young Black girl without means to then be thrust
Right.
into the limelight. So I thought she had a very authentic reaction to like, no, I don't need anybody to see that.
Totally. I think that's like a totally human reaction. I know in so many jobs that I've had people say, don't you want to do this? Don't you want to do this? Like with my writing, like I'm in charge, but whenever I've worked at coffee shops or anywhere else, I'm like, just tell me what to do. Like, I don't want to be in charge. I don't want to be sous chef. And I think that's where she's at.
Yeah, she reminds me of my sister. So on the topic of intersectionality, we see race, class, and gender as central themes to this story. So can you talk more about how your understanding of intersectionality and the importance of it to our identity play a part in how you wrote Amira and her friends and Tamra? So basically all the Black people.
That's fair. It was really important for me to show how gender and race, but most important for me, because it's just what I'm interested in, is class and how those things work. There are Black people with really strong respectability politics in this. There are women who just want to get along with work. And I think that I'm doing a disservice to my readers to not show all of those characters in their fullness. For me in this story, from the very beginning, every single detail was really important, because the way that Amira is addressed in that story has everything to do with how dark her skin is, how her clothes look, the quality of them, how she speaks, what her hair looks like, and all of those things are filtering in. I think it does a disservice to just say, oh, this is black and white. Like money and gender and race, like all play a huge role in there, and it's complicated. But I think that often fiction can do what like an essay can't do, and put you in a story and see something in a different way. So it was super important to show all of those aspects, from how, even Kelly, really making sure that he has consent with them when they're about to have sex. Like, I think that there's a lot going on in there, from gender to race, everything. So really honoring those awkward moments, I think, gets to the heart of those issues.
All right, so I have a pretty hefty question here. Throughout the book, you subtly and not so subtly point out that Amira is not Kelly's type, or at least she doesn't look like the women he typically dates. It's like a hint of colorism. So this made the person wonder, is Amira instead a surrogate for Robbie? Could the same be said for Alex? Is Amira a surrogate for her housekeeper Claudette? Surrogacy seems to be another layer to this conversation around domestic workers and wealthy families. Was it intentional to make this commentary?
First of all, that's a great question. I feel like they said some of those things better than I could. That was a great question. I think that sometimes what happened, well, I don't think, I know, for a lot of white people who don't know many Black people, they conflate a lot of the Black people that they know. I mean, probably every Black woman I've ever met, has had the experience of meeting a white person. They're like, who you remind me of? My friend Natalie. And then you meet Natalie and you're like, we look nothing alike, we talk nothing alike. You're just grouping us into something, and that is crazy. And so I think, like I said before, I really do think that Kelly and Alex have a crush on Amira and who she is. But I think that their view of what comes back to them for liking a Black person is too loaded, and it's too much. They kind of can't see her really clearly. I think Kelly gets something out of surrounding himself with Black people, and that doesn't really foster a genuine relationship. But he's also cute. And Amira's like, I'm only 25, and so I understand. Yeah,
it was like an experiment for her. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
What were you saying when you wrote that Alex was also right about Kelly and how he fetishized Black people, but Black people seem to also have love for him and keep him in their lives? He actually loved and cared for Amira, but many interracial couples seem to fetishize the other's ethnicity, and it never seems healthy. Were you attempting to say more about these types of interracial relationships, and if so, what? That's a
That's a
lot of
great
question.
question. So yeah, when I was in grad school, we talked a lot about dialogue, and one of the things I wanted to give my characters to do freedom to do was to use words even though they don't really understand what they mean. I think fetishizing is still a term that Alex is coming to grips with, and she likes throwing it at Kelly, even though she's also doing some of that stuff her own.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that the place where Alex is right is that Kelly is getting something out of this that Amir isn't. And I think that goes back to class a little bit. I think Amir starts to wonder, how many times have you told the story of how we met? And what else are you getting out of this? And you pay for me all the time. Do you feel do you get something out of that too? And I think power imbalances in relationships are super interesting. I think every woman who's dated interracially has had a moment where they're like, how do you when you tell people what I look like how do you what's going on there a little bit?
What adjectives are you using?
Yeah, so it's really, it was important for me to have Amira dating Kelly with the reader and being like, oh, okay, you know what, maybe this is a one night thing. Oh, you keep on calling, okay, let's see what's happening. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to give her that freedom. She's young, just to see what this is going to be, and that's where she ends up.
So I definitely think the ending for Amira challenged a lot of our perspectives on the ambitions of Black women and how we should or be ambitious. So this question is asking that it can be argued that Amira is far from #Black Girl Magic or Black excellence. What are your thoughts on pushing back against this ideal and allowing Black women to be average?
Oh man, I have so much to say on that one. That's a great question. I am all for Black Girl Magic that honors that Black women are different in every step of every way of life. And unfortunately, the way that feminism and the girl boss tropes work is very much within a consumer capitalist society, which says, oh, you have to want the same thing as these elite people in order to be worthy. When really, sometimes people just want to work. Some people just want to do their thing and go home and do their own thing at home. I think that should be magical as well. And so in the end, Amir does have a win in this way, but I also wanted it to be realistic. And Black women make way less money than other demographics, and I wanted to honor that truth. So I think that the way feminism is supposed to work is, okay, let's start at the bottom with who needs help the most and work our way up, but mostly it just kind of floats in this top area. And so I'm definitely commenting on those dynamics, as I think that they aren't really healthy. But I am all for Black girls being able to be average, because I think that's important. Yeah.
No, I loved it though, because this idea that we always have to be superheroes is actually harmful. And so I think, I like Ava DuVernay's Queen Sugar, because I think it's beautiful to see mundane Black people, people living a mundane life. Everything doesn't have to be this super high level, I'm reaching for the stars, I'm, clearing all these hurdles, I'm trying to save everyone. Sometimes you just want to live the life that you define for yourself. And I think, Black women, that's resilient, and that's just as amazing as someone who's doing all this stuff that's so visible for the community.
I completely agree. It's nice to see other aspirational people, but it's also just that's not me in certain ways. And so it's I should be able to, and that also goes with Tamara saying, oh, you should wear your hair like this, you should wear your hair like that. I think Black liberation is being able to wear your hair however you want to wear it. And so that's where I'm coming in.
All right. So if you could talk to Amira, what is one key piece of advice you would give her, whether it be about finding her place in the world or her relationships? And how would that differ from the advice Tamara gave her?
Oh, Lord. A little different. Oh, man. I feel like the advice I would give Amira, that's such a good question. I would probably say something like, keep pushing to find your stability, but your stability isn't going to look like your friend's stability at all. I think it's just, kind of at the end where pick one thing for her to harp on to Alex. I would say to her, pick one thing you really care about and try and get that thing and let everything else go to the side. Don't compare yourself to Josefo. Don't compare yourself to Shani. Get your one thing and focus on that. That is what's important. I wish someone had told me that. I was trying to do everything when I was 25. But yeah, that's what I would say.
Oh, yeah. All right, so I actually did like a review, pseudo review on my YouTube channel because Such a Fun Age reminded me a lot about like the girl boss movement, which I was never really keen on. And so I love that somebody asked this question, and they wanted to know if you could speak on the toxicity of white liberalism and the girl boss movement.
Oh, yes, I can speak on it. Yes. To me, the girl boss white liberalism movement is centered in a belief that what is good for markets and economy is good for human beings. And I just don't believe that that's true. You have these people saying, oh my gosh, look at her like cheap perfume, look at her cheap clothes, like let me make her more productive. When really this girl can't go to the doctor unless, unless she's going to spend like $6,000. And so I think that the real fight to making Black people successful and liberated is quality healthcare and education and quality living. That is liberation. And that is being a boss in itself. It's not, being a CEO, especially if you don't want to. It's giving people the full privilege of living their lives without worrying. I remember worrying so much about my health or if something happened that it would set me back for months. I think freeing Black people of that is true liberation. And if that's being a girl boss, that's what I want. That's my definition.
What has been some of the most surprising feedback you've received about Such a Fun Age?
Oh man, it's been really, I'm so glad that people have connected with the story. So for the most part, it's been wonderful. I did have a friend who was getting her nails done in Tribeca, and there was a group of women discussing my book. And she said that two of them got in a fight about whether or not Alex was a good person. And they started getting upset and they started yelling at each other. And then the salon manager was like, you need to take this outside, like you need to leave. And then as they started to leave, one of them shoved the other one. They were like fighting.
Over Alex. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that was probably the most surprising, that people are like going to bat for her. But you know what? I wanted to really show an empathetic side of her too. She's struggling. She's new. She's a mom, and she's struggling as well. So that was probably the most surprising, that people were coming to blows a little bit.
Do you think that there's been a noted difference between how Black and white people engage with your book?
There has been, which has been interesting. At every one of my reviews, there's been white women who they want me to tell them what to do. They get done reading the book and they're like, I just want you to tell me like what you want. Like, I know you want me to do something, like tell me what you want. Like, I'm not your dad. Like, just enjoy the story. I'm not here to teach anybody any lessons. And then I've noticed that white women love to talk about how awful Alex is, and Black women are like, I know this girl. You got her. Like,
yeah,
I work with this girl. Like, I, see this girl at my son's school. Like, I know this woman. And I love when Black women tell me too, like, that their mom has a friend who's a Tamara. That always makes me happy as well. And so, yeah, I think that there's something in Black women in white spaces, like it's easy for Black women to recognize these people a little bit better. So that's definitely been different. But I love a big reaction, so I'll take all the reactions I can get.
So as we talked about at the beginning, that Lena Waithe bought the rights to produce your book as a film. So we're wondering, do you have anybody in particular who you would like to see play Amira and Alex in the book to movie adaptation?
Okay, so typically this is my favorite game to play ever, but now it's real, and I feel like I'm going to jinx myself a little bit. But I will say the only thing that I honestly really care about is, Amira is a dark-skinned woman. And that is the story.
Don't let Hollywood whitewash it. So no Zendaya, unfortunately. We're going to have to get...
I love Zendaya, but this is not like, So I really hope that is honored, because the way that she is treated in that grocery store is not the way that I would have been treated. And I want to make sure that is really honored in this story. And there's not a lot of dark-skinned Black actresses, and that's because of racism. And I really hope that this is a place where we can make them shine.
Expand that. So who would be Kelly? How does Kelly, like, in your mind look? Actually, like, who looks like him?
Kelly has, in my mind, well, I mean, there's so many different white guys in Hollywood, so I hope it's going to be easy. Um, Dark hair,
Yes.
pale, like big chin, someone who's like not too preppy, like someone who, you know, he shops a lot at Trader Joe's, but he also like goes to a Kendrick Lamar concert. He has that balance, but I hope he's cute. Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see. It's so funny. One of the first interviews I ever did on my YouTube channel was with Lena Waithe. She was like super accessible. This is like 2014 though.
That's
Before,
amazing.
yeah.
She's legit. Yeah, she's such like a person, one of those people who's holding that door open and like ushering people in, which is great.
Yes. All right, so we're right on time because we are at the last question. We were like, we are going to get this little 30 minutes in. We're going to do it. We're going to get all our questions in. Yeah. Which character can you relate to the most?
Oh my gosh. Okay, you can't laugh at me with this though. Like everyone's like, are you Amira? Are you Alex? Honestly, I like Briar is so anxious and needs to know what's coming next. Like that is me all the time. Just like needs to know what's going on and feels like a little bit of like an existential crisis. And I think a lot of writers are anxious like that. So I definitely feel her. Also, I think like it's really easy for me to hype up my friends more than myself, like the way that Zara does, like getting really into other friends and their successes. So hopefully, I guess what I'm saying is I'm a mix between Briar and Zara, pretty much. Yeah.
Briar and Zara, the two good people in the book. So you see yourself as a good person. There's no arguing that Briar and Zara are like good people.
Have I been Alex and been like on my laptop late at night stalking someone? Yes. So she's added.
That level of stalking though was like a whole nother level. It was like a whole mess. Do you think that like I know we talked about this earlier, but the having Alex be like lying about Kelly and this letter really kind of changes. Well, for me, really changed how I was looking at her because I still had sympathy for her. And then that scene drops, and you're just like, oh, girl, you a lost cause. Can't even bother with you no more.
I totally understand what you're saying. It's funny because like in that moment, you're like, Alex, like we were rooting for you here. Like, come on.
At least a little bit.
Yeah. At the same time, like, I don't know about you, but I've met so many women who are so much worse. Like I think for most of the book, she keeps it together, but then she loses it a little bit. And so I had to do her a little dirty at the end and really be true to her. But do I see some similarities between me and Alex? Heck yeah. Like I get obsessed over things and I want to know what people are up to as well. I think she has a nervous energy that I can share. But yeah, she just takes it a little too far.
All right. Well, that's all. Thank you for sitting down with us and giving us your time. We were really excited. Look, I got my whole book. I actually listened to the audiobook, so I didn't even crack this whole book open.
I'm glad you enjoyed her. This is so lovely. Thank you very, very much.
Yes, we'll have to tell your agent to like CC us with Nicole because we need to talk to Nicole about her reading skills because she really, somehow you'll have to include her in the movie because she really brought this book to life and I loved it so much. Incredible. Oh, and congratulations on your Booker Prize long list nomination. Yes.
Thank you so much. That's super nice. It was a huge surprise. I'm very excited. So thank you.
And thank you to everyone tuning in. If you love the work we do, please donate to the Smart Brown Girl Book Club. We have a whole donation page. Just go check the website. And we will see you at the next live discussion. All right. We're going to end it here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.